Benjamin Franklin famously said, "Nothing is certain but death and taxes." And let's be real, none of us want to knock on the door from the IRS, right? The truth is, skipping out on filing your taxes can lead to a whole heap of trouble, including penalties, interest, and even waving goodbye to that potential tax refund. But guess what? There's a silver lining. You might not be able to escape death, but when it comes to taxes, there are some legal ways to play the game smart. Curious? Awesome! Let's see the world of savvy financial tactics where we'll spill the beans on how to legally wave goodbye to excessive taxes. In this video, we'll show you how different types of incomes are taxed. Then, we'll show you how you can legally avoid paying any tax on any income. In the end, we'll show you one big example of how John can live both his young and retired life without paying taxes. In the US, we have something called a progressive tax system. This means that if you earn more money, you'll pay a higher percentage of your earnings in taxes. In simple words, if you make less money, you pay a smaller portion of taxes, and if you make more money, you pay a bit more. For single filers, if you earn up to $11,000, you'll pay 10% of your taxable income in taxes. For earnings between $11,001 and $44,725, you'll pay $1,100 plus 12% of the amount over $11,000. If your income falls between $44,726 and $95,375, you'll owe $5,147 plus 22% over $44,725. In the range of $95,376 to $182,100, your tax will be $16,290 plus 24% of the amount over $95,375. This increase in taxes continues to 32%, 35%, and 37% as the income rises. The same bracket is a little different for married couples filing together. You can see the side-by-side comparison from both these pictures. Now, you might wonder how someone like Warren Buffett, who is really wealthy, ends up paying a lower tax rate than someone like a secretary who earns way less. It's because wealthy people often use legal strategies to reduce their tax burden. And here's the surprising part. Some of these strategies are things regular people can also do to lower their taxes, maybe even down to zero. So today we're covering exactly that, how you can legally pay way less in taxes or even no taxes at all for the rest of your life. These are tricks that anyone could learn to use. But before we start talking about how to make your tax bill much smaller, maybe even zero, there's something important to know. Rich people kind of have their own set of rules when it comes to taxes. It's not because they're doing something sneaky or getting special treatment. It's mostly because they understand the rules really well. Unlike many of us, who might not get how tax laws work or don't have someone knowledgeable to help, they often do. Here's a surprising thing. There's not just one kind of income when it comes to taxes. It's a bit different for tax purposes. Let's kick things off by diving into the world of income and taxes. Don't worry, it's not as complicated as it might sound. We're going to break down the three main types of income: earned, portfolio, and passive, and figure out how the tax man, as we love to call it, fits into this picture. Plus, we'll peek at those tax rates that like to play hopscotch as your income levels climb the ladder. First up, we've got the classic earned income. This is the money you bring home from your job, whether it's your paycheck, bonuses, or tips. Now, this income doesn't get a free pass when it comes to taxes. It's subject to federal, state, and sometimes even local income taxes. Plus, say hello to Social Security and Medicare taxes, which are snatched straight from your paycheck. When it comes to the tax rate for earned income, it's like a roller coaster. The more you earn, the higher percentage you pay in taxes. It's like leveling up in a video game, except instead of superpowers, you get different tax brackets. The brackets we just mentioned a couple of minutes ago. But there's a very neat trick to legally never pay tax on your salary, something we'll discuss in the end. Next up, we have passive income, like from rentals or less hands-on ventures, which has special rules. If you're not super involved, you're taxed at your usual rate. An interesting trick, using passive losses can offset passive income and reduce taxes. As this is not relevant to John's financial situation, we'll make a separate video on this for you guys in the future. Next in line is portfolio income, which is all about your investments like dividends, interest, and capital gains from selling things like stocks or real estate. Now, this income has its own special tax stance. Dividends and interest usually get taxed like regular income depending on your tax bracket. Capital gains, the money you make when you sell an investment for more than you paid, are like two flavors, short-term and long-term. Short-term gains, in other words gains that take less than a year, are taxed at your regular income tax rate. But long-term gains earned over 1 year, they often get a sweeter deal with lower taxes, kind of like a reward for holding on to that investment for a while. Alright, let's take a deep dive into portfolio income, as it's John's go-to income for the future. He might earn this income from selling things like stocks or index funds, and also from something called qualified dividends. These dividends are like rewards for having certain investments. Now here's the interesting part, how they're taxed can change based on a few things. For instance, if John gets these qualified dividends, they could be taxed like the money he makes from selling anything else, but there are rules to follow. First, the company giving the dividends needs to be from the US or a qualified foreign country. Secondly, the dividend can't be on the IRS's list of no special treatment dividends. And third, John needs to have kept the investment for a specific amount of time, like more than 60 days before the dividend is given. If a stock does not fall in these categories, the dividend he earns will be counted as not qualified and ultimately not taxed. John will get a form called a 1099 for his dividend money every year. It'll show which part of his dividends gets the special lower tax rate and which part doesn't. But here's a twist. If John only has an investment for a short time, any money he makes from selling it might be taxed like regular income. If you keep something like stocks for more than a year and 1 day before you sell, you'll usually pay less tax. This special tax is called long-term capital gains tax. But if you sell within a year, you might pay more, like regular income tax. Here's how it works. If John makes $80,000 from his investment, he has to pay a 15% tax on that income, which will be $12,000. But if John marries his soulmate, on that same $80,000, John will pay 0% tax. That's because for married couples like John and his soulmate, the U.S. tax code allows a tax break for up to $89,250. If they make more, the tax rate could be 15 or 20%, depending on how much they earn. But still, it's way lower than the 22 to 35% they might pay on regular income, which proves how these long-term gains get special treatment. These ranges already consider the earned income that can be taxed, so if you both have jobs and make $50,000 together in a year, you can't just sell an investment to get $80,000 from capital gains without taxes, as it would add up your combined yearly income to $130,000. But you could sell some investment to get $30,000 in gains without taxes, because your total taxed money would become $80,000. This smart move is called capital gains harvesting. It's a big deal for people who plan for the long term, like those getting ready for retirement. Let's say John and his soulmate retire with $500,000 into an account where they can invest their money. If that money grows by, let's say, 8% in a year, it becomes $540,000. So they've made $40,000 extra. Now let's say they also get a 2% qualified dividend payment of $10,000 from their investments. This $10,000 gets a special tax treatment called capital gains rates, something we discussed a couple of minutes ago. And as it's less than $89,250, they don't have to pay any taxes on it. If they let their savings grow at 8% every year without touching it, it would become almost $1 million. Half of this money, $500,000, is what they originally put in. The other $500,000 is what they would have earned from that 8% interest. By that time, they're getting around $20,000 every year from their investments. Remember the 2% qualified dividend. At that point, they could sell everything and get that $500,000 they made, but that's not the smartest move. If they do that, they might have to pay around $75,000 in taxes. So here's a better plan, something we like to call rebuying your earnings. In the second year, their investments grow to $540,000 and they get $10,800 from dividends. They can sell enough to make around $69,200 and not owe any taxes. How come? Well, they held on to their investments for more than a year, so they get the lower tax rate, or in our case, zero taxes because the total of $10,800 and $69,200 is still less than $89,250. Then, all they have to do is buy back their investment right away. This way, they keep growing their money without a tax bill at all. Even though they sold and bought back their investments, it won't change their overall money situation or dividends for that matter. They're just using a smart trick to make sure they don't get a visit from the tax man, Uncle Sam. So the bottom line is this: capital gains income, that's the money from selling investments, can be a powerful tool to make money without paying a lot of taxes. The trick is to figure out how to earn more money from investments and less from regular work. This is how people like Warren Buffett and others manage to pay less in taxes each year. It's like a money smart game. But to start earning money from investments, you first need to earn some money and then invest it. But how do you make sure you pay fewer taxes when most of your income comes from your job? Well, here's the trick. You use special accounts that the government has made for us to save on taxes. There are two important things to do to pay fewer taxes when you're working. First, try to spend less than you earn. This is called having a low burn rate. Second, put any extra money you have into these special accounts, the 401k, IRA, and HSA. These accounts are designed to give you tax benefits. Now, remember how we talked about tax brackets at the beginning? Your tax bill is calculated based on your taxable income, which is the money you make minus some deductions. Deductions are the things that lower the amount of money you're taxed on. For example, a standard deduction lets you earn a certain amount of money without paying taxes on it. In 2023, this amount was $13,850 for singles and $27,700 for married couples. So if a couple could live on less than $27,700 a year, they wouldn't have to pay taxes on their income. But here's where it gets really interesting. You can use accounts like the 401k, IRA, and HSA to lower your taxes even more. But before seeing how these accounts can help you legally avoid taxes, first, let's see the annual limits of these accounts. Let's say John has a job. He can put up to $22,500 a year from his salary into his 401k account. If he's older than 50, he can add an extra $7,500 for a total of $30,000. The absolute best thing in this? If he puts this money into his traditional 401k, he won't have to pay taxes on it right now. It's like saving money and saving on taxes at the same time. For the IRA, if you're under 50, it's $6,500 a year, and if you're over 50, you can add $1,000 more for a total of $7,500. With the HSA, you can put about $3,850 in if you're under 55, but families can put in even more. Add it all up, and if you're under 50, John and his soulmate could save up to $65,700 a year. This figure would be 68.5% 401k, 19.8% IRA, and 11.7% HSA. And guess what? You won't pay taxes on this money right away. But you might be wondering, well, won't you have to pay taxes when you take the money out? Well, it depends. For the HSA, if you use it for medical expenses, it's tax-free. But for the IRA, there's a smart trick called the Roth IRA conversion ladder. This lets you move money from a traditional IRA to a Roth IRA, which is an individual retirement account that offers tax-free growth and tax-free withdrawals in retirement. Roth IRA rules dictate that as long as you've owned your account for 5 years and you're 59 and a half or older, you can withdraw your money whenever you want to and you won't owe any federal taxes. Plus, if you do it right, you might not have to pay any taxes when you convert the money. Let me show you how. Let's take the John and his soulmate example again, where they had an account that gave them $40,000 every year in qualified dividends. Based on what we learned about the tax treatment on qualified dividends, we know that they'd pay $0 in federal income taxes. Let's say they also have a traditional IRA with $200,000 saved up. they could decide to move some of that money to a Roth IRA. Let's say they moved $27,700 this year, which is the same as the standard deduction for married couples. This money they move would be considered as the money they earned. But remember, your tax amount isn't based on how much you earn, it's based on your taxable income for the year. Since John and his soulmate only moved $27,700, their standard deduction would cancel out this whole amount, making their taxable income zero. And like we learned in math class, anything times zero is still zero. So they wouldn't have to pay any taxes for this move. They would just keep moving money from their regular IRA to their Roth IRA each year up to the standard deduction. And when the 6th year starts, they can take out the original $27,700 they moved in the first year without any taxes or penalties. In the 7th year, they could take out what they moved in the 2nd year, and so on and so on. This is how you get to your retirement money while keeping taxes low, both now and later. So those are the basics of living with minimal taxes or even tax-free as much as possible. Now that we've seen multiple ways to hack the tax system, let's put it all together in one picture. Let's say John and his soulmate are a happy couple in their mid-20s, and together they make $100,000 a year. After smart budgeting tricks, they've got their yearly expenses down to $27,000. They're really making the most of their situation. They max out their 401ks, IRAs, and HSA with their yearly combined limit of $65,700. This means they're left with $7,300 each year, which is taxable income. When we check out those tax brackets we talked about at the start of the video, it seems like they're well below any taxable income. Effectively, they're paying zero tax on $100,000 in annual earnings. Let's compare this to someone who didn't use these smart money tricks. They would owe the government over $17,400 in federal taxes. Even if someone earned $30,000 a year, they might end up paying more in taxes both in the actual dollars they pay and as part of their income. Now let's say the happy couple wants to retire at age 50. For this, John and his wife, the love of his life, have a clever plan, and they make sure to invest in a special tax treatment called long-term capital gains. This helps them pay less taxes later on. Let's keep it simple and say all their investments make around 8% profit each year. Their goal is to retire at 50 with a yearly income of $40,000 from investments, and with their smart moves, it seems possible. By then, they should have a total worth of about $3.42 million. The figure would be 68.5% 401k, 19.8% IRA, and 11.7% HSA. At 50, when they retire, their regular income stops. To make things easier, they merge their 401ks and IRAs into one traditional IRA worth $3.01 million. They start their conversion ladder by moving $27,700 of that to a Roth IRA. Then they use $40,000 from their regular account to live on for the year. The best part? Their total tax for the year is $0. Why? Because that $40,000 they got is treated as special long-term capital gains and is less than the taxable bracket. They do the same thing in the 2nd year, assuming their earnings stay similar. The main accounts they focus on are the Roth IRA and the regular account. The Roth IRA can be used without any extra taxes or fees when they're 59.5 years old or older. The regular account gives them tax-free income from their special long-term capital gains. The Roth IRA starts at $27,700 and will grow to around $57,600 by the end of year 2, thanks to the 2nd year's move and investment growth. The couple will keep moving money from their traditional IRA to their Roth IRA for many more years. They'll keep using their regular account for their expenses, all the while not paying a single penny of tax legally. This video covered how you can legally hack the U.S. tax system, but before you can pay taxes, you have to earn first. For this, watch our video on how to build a monster dividend portfolio, something that will help you make a monster monthly income of over $20,000.